This is the Hurricane Center podcast, made possible by USAA, the South Padre Island Convention and Tourist Bureau, Live View, and the Texas Weather Network. Today, our hosts are Bill Reed and Hal Needham.
Hello, everybody. This is Bill Reed talking to you from League City, Texas. We have an interesting show planned for today. But first, my colleague Hurricane Hal down in Galveston will be joining us. Tim won't be with us today. So, Hal, how's things going down on the island?
Man, it's beautiful. Typical June summer weather here. Humid, windy, but we'll take it. Seeing the sunshine now.
How's the sargassum?
It's, when that seaweed came in quite a bit late April and May, but I was down there yesterday doing some photos of it, and it's mostly very light, old, dry sargassum. You hardly even notice it there on the beach, that seaweed.
Does the city push a lot of that up into the dunes to help the structure?
They have a permit, actually, that permits them, if it gets over a certain threshold, they can relocate it towards the dunes, but they have to keep it on the beach because it's natural marine vegetation that helps build the beach. So they did do a big relocation about a month ago. Right now, it's been so light, they can just leave it where it's at.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to bring in our guests now. No stranger to the NTWC lifestyle. Mark Sudduth is coming to us from North Carolina, Wilmington. I'm glad I said it backwards. I usually say Wilmington, and then I'll stumble through the word Delaware because that's where I grew up. But anyway, Mark is one of our entrepreneurs and pioneers in remote sensing on the ground of landfalling hurricanes and other interesting weather events. Mark, welcome to the show.
Great to be back with you, everybody. Sorry I missed the fabulous Josh Morgerman hurricane party, but I just got back the day before from the Mississippi State University field course that I was helping to corral 4 students with Greg Nordstrom. We spent about 10, 11 days out in the Great Plains looking for mesoscale features because we're in an El Nino-ish pattern, and the split flow creates all kind of havoc with looking for severe weather, but we made the best of it, and I had to get on home, but I understand you guys had a great time with all that 50 inches of rain down there.
We did have some rain, and we will not be showing video in order to protect the guilty.
Of course. But yeah, it's great to be back, and talking about remote sensing, I got a pretty exciting project coming up that I've been invited to participate in with the National Hurricane Center and UCAR, University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. They've got some remote sensing devices to study storm surge and capture wind and pressure data. And we're all going to be working together over the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years to put these types of instruments in the field. And I'm going to actually meet with them in Boulder next week. Very excited to do that. Cody Fritz and Jamie Rome invited me to participate. So always something new and bright, down the road a piece. And this is the newest. And I get to go to Boulder. Any excuse to go out to Colorado. And I'm already going to be out there because I'm going out there with some other colleagues to do a little bit more in the severe weather realm. Hal, it was almost a year ago. I'd have to look it up in my photo thing on my phone that you and I were doing the fishing net thing out there in the Permian Basin.
Oh, that was so much fun going out looking for big hail. The fishing net idea worked pretty well. Mark put this big net out his window, and sure enough, there's some big hailstones.
Yep. We never could get the big ones, though, like Matthew Capucci always comes up with. That is the hardest part about that is, and I spent over 2 years an extraordinary amount of money looking for big hail, and I realized, what a really daunting task that is, and that's why you have the Ice Chip Project and the collaborative effort from folks like NSSL and the Institute for Business and Home Safety, and they put millions of dollars into it. And hail is a big deal. It's a big damaging part of meteorology. It's a hydrometeorite with high kinetic energy and high economic impact. So that's a good fancy way to say it.
Yeah. The Holy Grail's been to try to figure out how to make a more hail-resistant roof covering.
Right.
Even
and
the
windshields. Come on, the windshield industry, the one that just rolled through Colorado, recently in Denver a few days ago. I hadn't seen any dollar amounts on it. I should get up with Dr. Ian Giamanco about that. But that was another high-end event, and you just know the windshield places and the roofers, they're just like that meme where they're just doing the money thing. Like, it's a big deal. But it's hurricane season, and I don't think I'm going to be too busy overall. And in fact, I think I might be in Arizona more than I will be anywhere in the Southeast. We'll have to check in November and see if I was right about that.
Gonna do some haboob chasing?
Well, let's talk about that. So the haboobs, maybe, but I think, honestly, with the pattern the way it is and how active the East Pack season should be, I believe come September and October, we're going to get a lot of recurves up into the desert Southwest. And where it's hot and dry now, I think we're going to get bailed out in the Colorado River Basin by this El Nino and some tropical activity. If it doesn't come from that, it'll probably be the atmospheric rivers and everything else come winter. What do you think, gentlemen?
Well, yeah, that's a cool. I haven't followed Arizona's stuff yet, but since we have a vested interest in our property in Mexico,
right?
They have a great tutorial on the Southwest monsoon on the NWS Albuquerque's website, and they are indicating in their thinking it'll be above average season, but they're not high confidence in it because it depends on where the center of that subtropical high sets up.
Right. And you bring up an interesting point, Bill. The monsoon is one thing, but I am very keenly interested, and I'd be interested to see what Hal thinks about this. If we get the right pattern, especially September and October, that we get some of these big hurricanes coming up out of the East Pack. The Gulf of California is currently running several degrees above normal on the Celsius and the Fahrenheit scale, either one. Not so much quite yet off of San Diego. I've seen some hyperbolic statements from some people that this could be the year that San Diego gets a hurricane. It's like, man, we're still looking at 18, 19 C off San Diego right now.
Yeah,
we got a long way to go.
Kind of like the statement, this will be the year that Mark Sudduth wins the lottery.
Right. Although,
yeah, Mark, you're right though. I mean, you could see a lot of those impacts there in Pacific Mexico, and like you were mentioning, whether it's monsoonal or it's remnants of a tropical system pushing into the Southwest, you just don't need a lot of rain out there to get some big flood impacts.
Right.
And a lot of that's intermingled. The monsoon, streamwise pattern that sets up. They will capture the remnants of those storms, and it'll be putting the high octane fuel into the mountains.
Because as you know, Bill, the snowpack in New Mexico, Colorado, the Colorado River Basin as a whole is nil, right?
Right.
And I think it's interesting because I think it's also Bill Reed. Bill Reed's got a lot of quotes, ladies and gentlemen. If you're ever in a mansion or a house or a restaurant, you see a quote on the wall, it probably came from Bill Reed. And one of those is the hurricane bait. That's his. You build back stronger, but the hurricanes come back bigger. That's another one of Bill Reed's. And then the other one is something like all droughts end in flood. I think that's also Bill Reed.
Yeah. And,
Mark, don't forget about predicting model canes. Those 312-hour, he'll call them model canes too. That's another Reedism.
Yeah, the fantasy canes or whatever. Most of those, I have to admit, most of those are shamelessly plagiarized from other authors.
Of course.
But my only original one is what I'll have on my tombstone. In quotes, it'll say, "I knew this would happen."
Right. There you go. That's a good one. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Colorado River Basin gets bailed out by the El Nino with some tropical connections. But, the question is, will it go too far in the other direction and we have a big flooding issue? We don't know. That's the other thing. And this El Nino could be significant. So we'll have to see.
Are you working with a university or any other group while you're out in Arizona, or is this just your own project you want to take on?
Yeah, this has been a part of what I've been doing since about 2014 out that way. The first one I studied, and that's the beauty of being a geographer, is it's kind of a jack of all trades. I've got a lot of different sciences blended into that, and even economics. And that's what I think is so been interesting about my career these last 30 years is that I do get that blend of meteorology, hydrology, and economics and the impacts of things, because that's what I mainly focus on. How does the weather impact us? So, that being the case, Norbert, 2014, leftover hurricane, never made landfall, not even the remnants of it, but it came close enough to the southwest that a trough came in, pulled some of that moisture up. And I think there were a couple of lives lost in Arizona. And then a lot of flooding went up through Nevada. The Interstate 15 got cut from a flash flood near Mesquite or somewhere. And then I was up in St. George. And here's the thing, it's fascinating because you get all of that moisture, the P-watts just go bananas, ridiculous precipitable water. And this is the way I think of it. It speeds up geologic time to light speed. That's obviously a hyperbolic statement, but it really does speed up geologic time. And then when it's done, that event, everything goes back to being frozen in time. And that's amazing. That's amazing. And Hal has traveled this globe of ours enough. He's seen that in different
Guys,
areas.
I wanted Mark and Bill, I want to ask both you guys, with the monsoonal moisture, with potential tropical moisture, if it comes out of the East Pack there, how far north in general can those impacts get? I mean, we talk about, like, this year is the 50th anniversary of the deadliest disaster in Colorado's history, a massive flood in the end of July 1976. Can we see some of that monsoonal moisture get into Colorado, Utah, and get that far north?
Short answer is yes, but I'll defer to Bill because he knows a lot more because got the property in New Mexico.
Well, it goes back to our stumbling around trying to figure out how to describe and package weather. There's the weather systems don't have any of our artificial boundaries in their DNA. So if the weather pattern sets up where there's a abnormally deep trough that carries pretty good flow all the way up from northern Mexico all the way up in the Intermountain region, sure, I know it'll lose a lot of that in raining it out over the higher terrains of Arizona and New Mexico, but it's still there. And like Colorado and Wyoming, you also have a flow coming in from the Gulf.
Right.
So if you have a landfalling system, any of these weak systems that make landfall on the coast of Mexico from Veracruz to south of Brownsville, and they're moving northward, it's gonna take a while before all that moisture dissipates.
That's right.
Coming in there, and if there's something else going on in the westerlies and it gets up there, you get floods.
But it's, the bad side too is sometimes you get not enough moisture, or it's the waning days of it, and you get high base thunderstorms, and you get more lightning than you do rain. So that's what's so fascinating about it. That's the thing. It's like it's not easy to predict. And when you do have the impacts are pretty substantial. And now with all of these population centers growing out there with Phoenix and Tucson and elsewhere, and these data centers, that's a whole new thing in our vernacular now, sucking up all the water and everything else. It just becomes, it's never a dull moment in the weather world. And with this big El Nino coming, potentially, it's going to be an interesting year. But rain is an impact, and I think that's the takeaway here. And I think even elsewhere, the Gulf, the East Coast, etc., and the Caribbean islands, you guys know as well as I do, just a tropical depression, just a disturbance. Our good friend Rob Perillo knows all about that. 2016, that unnamed Gulf low that just moved across I-10 and flooded Perillo out of his own house. Rain is a huge impact, and we don't need a category anything to create problems even in an El Nino year.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more obvious to me in the events I've been looking at that constantly warmer Gulf, it may fluctuate a little bit depending on situation, is supporting significantly higher dew points. I mean, we didn't get down below 80 the other day here in June. It was because of the dew points. It wasn't any big heat ridge buildup at the time. Didn't get to 90 that day. So that's coming north, and you look at these 8 inches of rain in 4 or 5 hours, or 2 or 3 hours in Indiana.
Yeah.
Bet you if Tim Smith was here, I never saw that before, and that's where he's from. It's getting pretty obvious that we don't deal with flooding properly.
Nope.
We keep rebuilding within inches of the 100-year floodplain, which is also a ridiculous benchmark. But anyway, my clock says it's time to pass it back to Alex for a sponsor message. And then I'll come back and regale you with a few thoughts on the tropics and then turn it over to Hal.
All right. Thanks for being with us. We'd like to say thank you to USAA, South Padre Island Convention and Tourist Bureau, Live View, and the Texas Weather Network. They all make this Hurricane Center podcast and the National Tropical Weather Conference possible. We're here weekly. We invite you to be with us every week as we discuss some interesting topics hurricane-wise. Back to you, Bill.
Well, thanks, Alex. And the same caveat that I had last week is, anyway, you're going to be watching this long after we record it, so just use this for your information or intelligence gathering. But to gather official forecasts, please consult your favorite sources, preferably the National Hurricane Center, in my humble opinion, as to what's actually going on with the storms. We do have one storm out there, Christine, that has hardly moved in the last 2 days. If it was parked over Harris County, Texas, the city of Houston, we would be talking massive floods. Instead, it's raining most of the rain in the ocean, but there's still a lot of rain in the higher elevations in there. Yeah, in the big picture, that is pretty much the only real show in town right now. There's northerly winds, and the Gulf is stable right now, and dry in the upper levels. There's some moisture out in the eastern Gulf. And you remember a week ago, all the models were not all the models. Some of the models were getting antsy about something this time this week to be over there, and as you see, nothing really happened. It's a tough chore on how to pick up what's real and what's an artifact of a model coming out of the Central American gyre. So if it's not within the next 24 to 48 hours, I tend to not pay it too much attention. This year, it's too early to worry about out here. Both the ocean is cool and the shear is high, and African dust is coming all the way across like it's normally going to do in there. Where Christine's going to go is a bit of an interesting exercise. It's got a bit of northerly shear coming into the southern coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and any motion to the north there is being retarded by that. And everywhere else, it's kind of a trade-off. So it is stuck there, and we'll see just what the Hurricane Center wants to do with it here. But first, there's our 10%. That's for potential of some of this circulation left over to get out in the Bay of Campeche, but it's only given a 10% chance, and that's out towards the outer end of this forecast. In the Pacific, there's one show. It's Christina, and their forecast. Love this new format. It's a nice focus on it right off the bat. It's still forecast. I remember a couple days ago, it was forecast to make landfall on Tuesday, then it got pushed to Wednesday. Now it's pushed to Thursday. Anyone want to bet on getting pushed to Friday? And again, the only impact of consequence from that is the heavy rain. And there's this area on the Guatemala, extreme southern Guatemala, and then the western portion of El Salvador get quite a bit of rain. And Hal and I were talking earlier that this may be underdone, especially with the mountainous terrain in some locations. So with that, I'll stop the share. And Hal, what you got from GeoTrek interest before we get back to Mark?
Yeah, funny you mentioned El Salvador. I'm actually going to be there for 12 days later this month. I'll be there in 2 weeks.
Wow.
We're kicking off a documentary series called Extreme Explorations, where we're traveling the world to find out what were the deadliest disasters in different regions of the world, what were the impacts of those disasters, and then what are professionals and local residents doing to mitigate against that happening again. So we're launching it. Episode number 1 will be focused on El Salvador, and episode number 2 then actually on that Big Thompson River flood in Colorado. With they're having a lot of 50-year memorials for that on the afternoon of July 31st. So that's going to be episode 1 will be El Salvador, episode 2 will be Colorado. But again, getting into these disasters, El Salvador, an interesting place. we're talking earthquakes, but then you just gave this forecast of maybe 16 inches of rain in the mountains. They deal with mudslides. They deal with heavy rainfall there in Central America. So multiple hazards that they're focused there. And anything that I can pick up on that as well when I'm down that way, we'll definitely include that either on a podcast, social media reels, or on a future documentary.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. The Big Thompson that occurred while I was in graduate school, and I met a couple of people that did a lot of research on it. I'll talk to you afterwards on maybe some people you want to meet with that had know firsthand a lot of what happened there.
Well, we would love to interview any storm survivors, any professionals that have insight into that. So yeah, hit me up. We'd love to really fill this documentary with a lot of expertise. So thanks for that. And thanks for the tropical weather update, Bill. Mark, back to you. I want to ask you, when we see impactful hurricanes, you're typically there on the ground, recording information, doing a lot of video documentation. You're also usually on the cutting edge of emerging technology. So I wanted to ask you, how will your field work and your video documentation look different this year compared to, say, 5 years ago? What are some of these technologies that have emerged that it seems like you're always on the cutting edge? What are you incorporating this year into your footage?
This year, I think the biggest thing is not fearing the dark. We have finally figured out how to get lighting to work and remote into our own custom built lighting units to turn them on. We live in this world of Internet of Things. All kinds of stuff can be remoted into as long as you have internet. And we finally have all that figured out. I can't go into too much detail about it because some of it is proprietary, as they say. But that's been an issue. Obviously, when hurricanes hit at night, we can't see very much. And since 2018, with our Nest cameras that we've been using, they do have that ability to see better at night. They slow down the frame rate. The shutter is opened, and there's like an infrared light or whatever. But it looks almost like stop motion. It's just not quite the same. But that being said, it has led to us not missing out entirely on things. I think about Helene. We had Steenhatchee River at night that was extraordinary. We had Milton, where we could see this yacht come up, and it has worked, but we need some real artificial light. And it's been hard to figure out how to do that because you have to set stuff up a day or two ahead of time, get out of the way. Various reasons, emergency management needs, whatever. We just can't go in and turn a light on. So we have finally solved that problem where we will literally be able to go in on an app, turn the light on, light up a small area. That's the key. We're not talking about lighting up an entire intersection or a building or whatever, but like at night we will shrink the shot. And that's the thing, Hal, you have to think of this like a director of photography, a DP in the business, right? What will the shot look like? So underneath a house, something close by that we can now put light on and we'll be able to see. And we'll use different cameras that will have a higher resolution overall. They record on an internal chip themselves, so no longer will we have to have those GoPro boxes out there in addition to our Nest cams. It's all in one unit, so everything's continuing to advance. The other thing, of course, is we're using SpaceX's Starlink more and more. And, Phil Minoan, I think that's how you say his last name, a good friend of NTWC. Got to see him briefly this year at South Padre because he was very busy over there at Boca Chica. Always good to see Phil and the work that he does for SpaceX as their meteorologist. I've sent him a lot of info. When you and I were out there doing that hail stuff last year, Starlink doesn't work in hail. Elon's good, but he can't beat physics. Physics is undefeated, always, and you just can't get that signal through.
No, they're really good insights there, Mark. I wanted to ask you too. You and your team have done such a great job of recording both recorded video and sometimes live stream video. What's going to be the breakdown? Like, what percentage of your work are you trying to live stream versus what percentage is recorded video that you can make available later?
Well, that's the honest answer. It's literally 50-50 because everything that we stream live is recorded. And so we have the vehicle shot. So if we want to break it down more, live streaming from the vehicle or live streaming as we take you through first person in the storm. That's one thing. And of course, everything's recorded in the cloud, YouTube, whatever. But all of the cameras that we put out when they're live streaming, they all record as well. And, that way, if we do lose something physically, it's gone, but everything's been recorded into the cloud. And that's been a great thing. And that just continues to get better and better. And using Starlink, that'll help with that much more in the future, even in remote areas like Jamaica, elsewhere. Hey, you never know. Maybe one day I could send you out if you're going to go down somewhere, and you can set up a Starlink-based live streaming camera for something, or maybe Josh would be willing to entertain that. I don't like to leave.
Let's keep in touch. Let's keep in touch. I'd love to do that. Bill, I wanted to pass it back to you too to see if you have any final questions for Mark here.
Oh, wow, we're coming up on the half hour. Time flies. Time flies on that.
We're having fun.
We've got what you're doing this year down pretty cool. That sounds like a very ambitious summer up ahead. Do you have any longer term projects in the mill or new equipment that you might be looking at in the next year or two?
I think the newest thing here will really be circling back to the idea of working with UCAR and their partnership with the National Hurricane Center, and really seeing where that goes, because they're doing some incredible things with 3D printing and instrumentation, remote sensing, especially for wind data, because wind data has been one of the most challenging parts of my work. I even talked about that this year at all of my presentations, is failure. All the times we've failed, I keep showing up and showing you all these success stories. Well, sometimes we fail spectacularly, and I'm hoping that the fine folks at UCAR have kind of figured that part out, and we can work together in the long term and really capture more wind data than ever before. Josh does a great job with the pressure data. There's other chasers that do that. But wind, Bill, I want the wind. I want to be the guy. Even if I'm with a team and we all did it together, that's fine. We got the highest wind reading ever recorded, and it's verifiable. That'd be a pretty good legacy.
You might want to work with the RM Young folks.
Yes.
Alex, that anemometer that
that's what we use.
Bay St. Louis will be off the map, but there'll be this telephone pole with an anemometer on it still there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's hard capturing wind data.
Yeah.
You write it properly. You got to make sure your equipment works properly, and you got to make sure people don't steal your stuff. Story for another day.
Yeah, on the Gulf Coast, there's precious few unobstructed places to put it up. These pine trees, they get out of the way when the hurricane comes in, but you kind of like to measure the wind before that happens.
You got it. You said it.
Yeah.
Mark, I know our listeners are going to want to really find you and interact with you. Is the best way to do that through the Hurricane Track website? How can our listeners find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, 1999, hurricanetrack.com. You can just look for that logo wherever we are. That's the official branding at Hurricane Track, Hurricane TRACK, across all of the most relevant social media anyway, including TikTok from time to time, God forbid, but I do the best I can there. But yeah, thank you for asking. Of course, we're also Patreon supported, as a lot of people in the weather content creation business are. And I cannot thank our community enough. And it gets us to where we need to be. It's wonderful. Thanks for asking.
Well, we've reached the half-hour point there. I'm going to turn it back to Alex for a wrap-up of the show and what's coming up next time.
All right. We have had a really great show, guys. I really appreciate it. Mark, that was an interesting conversation that we just had. And, of course, next week, we've got the main guy, Dr. Phil Klotzbach, is coming up next week. So that should be a really interesting show as well. We're here weekly with all this information. We'd like to thank USAA and the South Padre Island Convention and Tourist Bureau, LiveView, and the Texas Weather Network. They make the National Tropical Weather Conference and the Hurricane Center podcast possible for all of these weeks. Again, join us next week. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you all.